Welcome to Midnight Shadows. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and step with me into the darker corners of fear. It all started when Emily and I moved into a narrow townhouse in a quiet suburb outside Seattle. A strange place with endlessly long hallways and doors lined up in an almost unnerving symmetry. My name is Daniel. I'm a structural engineer, the kind of guy who trusts numbers, blueprints, and hard facts. But on the very first night, something felt wrong. The sharp scent of fresh paint mixed with a lingering trace of incense left behind by the previous owner. It made my chest feel heavy, like invisible fingers were tightening around my throat in the dark. Emily had always been outgoing, full of life, but ever since we moved in, she changed. Quiet, distant. Every night around 2 a.m., I'd find her standing motionless in front of the large hallway mirror, slowly brushing her long dark hair with an eerie, lifeless expression. That night, I got home late from work. The living room lights were still blazing. Emily sat on the couch, holding two identical toothbrushes in her hands, staring blankly into nothing. "Why do you have two out? You replacing them or something?" Her face was pale under the fluorescent light. Her lips trembled as she looked at me, eyes filled with panic and something else. Suspicion. "You just got out of the shower, so why are your clothes still dirty? Who are you?" A chill ran down my spine. My hands were still covered in dust from the job site. I forced a smile, trying to break the suffocating tension. "I just parked in the garage and walked up the stairs. Look, I'm still sweating." She didn't answer. Slowly, she raised her hand and pointed toward the closed bathroom door. From inside, I could hear running water and soft whistling. A tune. My tune. The one I always whistle in the shower. My heart started pounding. Ice shot down my spine. I rushed over and kicked the bathroom door open. Empty. Nothing but steam fogging up the room, and the faint scent of my own peppermint soap hanging in the air. I stood there, staring at the mirror coated in condensation. And for just a split second, I saw it. A figure standing right behind me. It looked exactly like me. Its grin stretched impossibly wide, too wide, before it vanished into the mist. After that, the house turned into a waking nightmare. Whatever that thing was, it stopped hiding. It didn't just appear anymore, it started replacing me. One evening, I came home early and saw Emily sitting at the dinner table, laughing and talking with a man wearing my favorite blue shirt. He sat like me, held his fork like me. Even the small mole at the back of his neck was exactly the same as mine. "Hey, try some more of the salmon. I think I went a little heavy on the seasoning tonight." Emily leaned in, playfully sliding a piece onto his plate, her eyes brimming with that familiar warmth. It made my chest tighten, like 1,000 jagged needles stabbing straight through my heart. He gently brushed a stray hair from her forehead. His voice was low, steady, and hauntingly familiar. It was my voice. But beneath the surface, there was something slick, something deeply wrong. "Anything you cook is perfect, babe, as long as I'm with you. I'm happy." I snapped. I charged into the dining room, screaming in a helpless rage, my hand gripping my car keys so tightly they bit into my palm. But the moment I lunged to grab his shoulder, he vanished. Just like that, like gray smoke dissolving into the air. Emily stared at me, frozen, her face twisted in pure terror, as if she were looking at a monster. "What is wrong with you? Why are you acting like this? We were just having a nice dinner." I was gasping for air, drenched in a cold sweat. My voice trembled as I pointed at the empty chair beside her. "You didn't see him? The guy sitting right there. The one who just touched your hair." She scrambled up, tears streaming down her pale face, shoving me back with everything she had. "Stop it. You're terrifying me. You've been sitting here with me this whole time. You're the one who said the salmon was good. How long are you going to keep this up?" That's when the realization hit me. The house wasn't just haunted, something was rewriting reality itself. It was eating away at her memory, blurring the line between me and whatever that thing was. I didn't sleep that night. I sat huddled in the dark corner of the living room, clutching a steak knife, my eyes locked on the floor-length mirror in the hallway. At exactly 3 a.m., the bedroom door slowly creaked open. A man stepped out. His gait was slightly off, unnatural. He was wearing my favorite flannel pajamas, and he walked straight toward the mirror. But he didn't look at his own reflection. He looked through it, straight at me. And then, he smiled. "You can't protect her," he whispered, "because in her heart, I'm the perfect husband." I roared and lunged forward, driving the blade deep into his chest. There was no blood, just a burst of thick, black mist reeking of decay that flooded my lungs and made me gag. His body began to liquefy, collapsing into a pool of oily dark sludge on the hardwood floor. At the exact moment, Emily screamed, a sound so sharp, it felt like it tore through my soul. I sprinted into the bedroom. She was clutching her chest, blood soaking through her nightshirt, right over her heart, the exact same spot where I had just driven the knife. Why would you do this?" she gasped, her voice splintering. "What did I ever do to you?" Her eyes filled with a final, agonizing pain before slowly fading to a dull glaze. Her body went limp in my arms, her breath flickering out like a candle in a draft. That's when the truth settled in. Her life, her very soul, had been tethered to that thing. It didn't just steal my face, it bound her existence to its own. From the hallway mirror, another version of me stepped out, whole, alive. That same impossibly wide smile stretched across his face. He walked over calmly, lifting Emily's lifeless body from my trembling arms, looking down at me with a sickening mix of pity and disgust. "You killed your own wife," he said softly. "Now go inside the mirror and learn to live with it." My body froze. An invisible force dragged me backward, pulling me into the freezing, hard surface of the glass. My vision narrowed, shrinking until the entire world became a suffocating, silver frame. Outside, I watched myself cleaning up the room, whistling a cheerful tune. He was getting ready to start a new life with his wife, the one who was now slowly sitting up on the bed, her eyes completely white. "So tell me, the person sleeping next to you tonight, are they really the one you love? Or are they just something waiting for you to close your eyes?" I felt myself being pulled into a freezing void, a place where light barely existed. Just dull gray streaks bleeding faintly through the other side of the glass. I slammed my fists against the mirror, again and again. But the sound was wrong. Muted, weak, like something thrashing underwater in thick, suffocating liquid. Out in the hallway, the double calmly buttoned up my shirt. He adjusted the collar with care, studying himself in the mirror, my mirror, before giving me a slow wink. A smug, revolting wink. Emily, or rather, whatever was wearing her face, rose from the pool of blood. The wound in her chest sealed shut unnaturally fast, like a cheap magic trick, leaving behind a dark, uneven scar. "Are you ready?" she said softly. "Let's go see that movie tonight, like you promised." Her voice was still sweet, just like the day we met. But her eyes, empty. Two endless pits of darkness, staring only at him. He smiled, warm, gentle, so perfect it made me sick. He took her cold hand, and the two of them walked out of the house, leaving me behind, screaming into the absolute silence of the reflected world. I turned around and froze. I wasn't alone. Deep within this endless maze of mirrors, shapes began to emerge from the darkness. Hundreds of them, curled up, trembling, all of them originals, all of them replaced. Their faces were faded, blurred, like old photographs left too long in water. "Don't waste your strength," a voice whispered beside me. I turned and saw a man who looked exactly like my elderly neighbor, the one who had died 3 months ago. His voice was dry, rough, like sandpaper scraping against wood. We're just shadows now. I stumbled back and hit something behind me. Soft, rotting, the stench of decaying flesh filled the air. That's when I realized this place wasn't just a prison. It was feeding on us. Our memories being pulled out, drained, consumed to sustain whatever existed on the other side. I saw it, a moment from my past. The night I proposed to Emily by the waterfront. City lights reflecting in the water, fading, breaking apart, dissolving into black smoke, and with every memory that disappeared, my body became lighter, more transparent, like I was slowly evaporating. I have to get out. I can't let him take her like this. I roared, throwing myself against the mirror with everything I had left. But it didn't break. It barely even reacted, just a faint ripple, like a pebble dropped into still water. And then, they came back. The clock on the wall outside struck midnight. Each chime echoed, dry and hollow. Dong, dong, dong. The double stepped into the house. But this time, he wasn't alone. He was holding the hand of a child. A little boy, maybe 5 years old, and his face, it was mine. The face I had as a child. The child Emily and I had once dreamed of having. "Come on," he said gently, patting the boy's head. "Go say hi to Mom. She's waiting for us." His hand lingered on the boy's hair, and I saw it. His fingers stretching, dark nails growing longer, sharper. Emily stepped out of the bedroom. She wore a white nightgown, her face lighting up in a strange, unnatural glow the moment she saw the child. She dropped to her knees and pulled him into her arms. "My baby, you're finally here." Her voice broke into sobs that echoed down the hallway. But it wasn't joy. It was something else, something torn, twisted, like a soul being ripped apart. The child said nothing. He just stood there in her arms. His eyes, completely white. No pupils. And from his small mouth, a thin stream of black mist began to spill out, slowly filling the room. That's when I understood. That wasn't a child. It was something forming, feeding on her longing to be a mother. "Stop, please, just stop." I pounded against the mirror, tears streaming down my face, but they turned to gray dust the moment they hit the ground. The double turned toward me. This time, he wasn't smiling. His face sagged, melting, revealing raw, red flesh beneath. He pressed his face against the glass, his breath fogging the surface between us. "Do you see it now?" he whispered. "Our family is finally complete. A perfect family, something you could never give her." Then he laughed, a high, screeching sound, like metal scraping against glass. He reached down and picked up a large hammer, the one I used to keep in the toolbox under the stairs. He raised it slowly, his eyes locked onto mine, standing just beyond that thin boundary between reality and illusion. "It's time," he said, "to erase the last shadow of the past." The hammer came down hard, but not against the mirror to set me free. Instead, he smashed the wall clock, shattering it into pieces, and in that instant, time in the outside world seemed to freeze inside that moment of pure horror. He turned to Emily. She had fully changed now, her skin pale and almost translucent. Dark veins pulsing visibly beneath the surface. "Now, bring him to us," he said, pointing straight at me, and that's when I realized the mirror was no longer solid. It softened, sagging like thick black tar, ready to swallow me whole and drag me deeper into nothingness. Emily's hand, the same hand I once held during freezing winter nights, suddenly pushed through the surface of the mirror. Her fingers stretched unnaturally long, sharp like metal hooks, gripping my collar and yanking me toward the artificial light of the world outside. I felt the pull immediately, violent, tearing, like my soul was being ripped in half as her arm pierced through the cold glass. Her fingers dug into my shoulder, pain exploding through my body like fire. I struggled, desperate, my legs still trapped in the black sludge of the reflected world while my upper body was dragged out into the dim fluorescent glow of the hallway. "Come back to us, come home," she said. Don't hide in there anymore. It's cold. Her voice wasn't human anymore. It sounded like shards of glass grinding together, sharp, layered, filled with something cruel. She pulled again, harder this time, and I was ripped free, collapsing onto the cold tiled floor. Air rushed back into my lungs, but it carried the stench of rust and half-burned scented candles. I lay there, gasping, looking up, and saw myself standing beside her. He still held the hammer, fragments of the broken clock clinging to it. The child, the one with my face, stood at their feet. He didn't smile, didn't cry. He just stared at me with hollow white eyes, his mouth moving slowly as if chewing something tough and endless. So, you made it out, the double said, stepping closer. Good, because a complete family always needs a sacrifice. Each step he took felt heavy, like a hammer striking the ground. Then he drove his polished dress shoe straight into my chest. I heard my ribs crack under the pressure, pain shooting through me as I gasped for air. I reached out, trying to grab him, but his skin felt wrong, hard as stone, cold as something pulled from the grave. Emily knelt beside me. Her hands were coated in thick black fluid as she gently touched my face. For a brief second, her eyes changed. Something flickered there. Something human, like the last piece of the woman I loved was still trying to fight her way back. Daniel, I'm sorry, she whispered. But they said, if you're not here, the child won't survive. Tears streamed down her face, but they weren't tears. They were dark, heavy drops of blood, falling onto my skin, burning hot like molten metal. The child stepped closer. Slowly, he opened his mouth, too wide, revealing rows of tiny, needle-like teeth. Then he bit down into my leg. The pain was unbearable, drilling straight into the bone, tearing a scream out of me. The double crouched beside me, leaning in close. His breath reeked of rot. You see now? He whispered. This is what happens when you bury yourself in work, chasing blueprints and deadlines, and forget the woman waiting for you in this perfect little house. His voice dropped lower, colder. I wasn't born from nothing. I was born from her loneliness, from every dark prayer she whispered into that mirror, night after night, at 2 a.m. It hit me all at once. This was my fault. My neglect, my distance. I was the one who opened the door for this curse to enter. This perfectly symmetrical house was never a home, it was a trap. And Emily's loneliness? That was the key that gave it life. The double raised the hammer high, the steel gleaming under the cold fluorescent light. He looked at me one last time, triumph written all over his face. Now, become one of us. He swung, but not at me. The hammer slammed into the large hallway mirror behind my back. The crash exploded like thunder, glass shattering into thousands of shards, tearing into my skin. In that instant, reality began to break. The shards didn't fall, they hovered in the air, each one reflecting a different moment of my life. I saw the day we moved in, the days I chose work over her, and the nights she stood alone in front of that mirror, crying. Then suddenly, they caught fire. The flames weren't hot, they burned with a strange, pale blue glow, consuming the entire house. The double screamed as his skin peeled away, revealing a shapeless, rotting mass underneath. Emily clutched the child tightly, and the two of them began to melt together, merging into a writhing black form before being pulled backward into a void where the mirror once stood. I felt myself thrown outward, falling endlessly through darkness, until the cold touch of early morning air hit my skin. I woke up lying on the hallway floor with broken glass scattered all around me. The fluorescent light flickered overhead, and the silence felt wrong. I pushed myself up, trembling, calling Emily's name, but there was no answer. The house was empty, no fire, no decay, no sign of anything that had just happened. Just the faint scent of old floor wax lingering in the air. I looked down at a shard of glass near my feet and froze. The reflection staring back at me didn't have the mole on the back of its neck. My breath caught, My hand shot up to my neck, nothing. It was gone. I stumbled toward the large mirror, now nothing but an empty wooden frame. And then I saw them. Emily, standing on the other side, holding a child in her arms. Both of them were staring at me, desperate, pleading. Her lips moved silently. "Daniel, please, save us." I looked down at my hands. My fingernails were growing longer, turning black. That's when I understood the truth. The one trapped inside the mirror wasn't me. It was her, and the real version of myself. As for me, the one standing out here, I was the one who won. I was the one who survived the exchange. I smiled, a wide, unnatural smile stretching far beyond what any human face should allow. Slowly, I turned and walked toward the bedroom, where my perfect life was waiting. So tell me, when you look into your mirror tonight, are you really seeing the one you love? Or are you the one standing outside, staring into a glass coffin? This is where the story of the doppelganger curse, and the house with two husbands, comes to an end. Just a reminder, everything you've heard is a work of fiction, created to bring you a chilling experience. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Midnight Shadows for more dark tales like this. And tonight, take a closer look at your mirror. Sleep well, if you can. I'll see you in the next story.